Miyari. Hello, hola todos. We're going to start. Welcome, Manawa, bienvenidos to Kiwari Taíno Voices or Kiwari Taíno Ahuikino. This is a panel discussion, and this is something that we have been doing for a few years now. I think we try to do it about once or twice a year. The past Kiwari Taíno Voices, you can find the recordings on my YouTube channel. And also we presented at the Taino conference last summer. And so there's a recording of that panel discussion, and that happened in Canoanas in Boriquén. And the recording of that is on the Taino conference YouTube channel. So the past, Kiwari Taino Voices, you can find them on YouTube if you'd like to watch that. But tonight we have some new panelists who we're gonna be conversing with. And so we have, I'm gonna let them introduce themselves in a little while. But tonight we have Nelsito, Merlin, Diez, Mickey, myself here as the facilitator, and Ana. And so in a little while, I'll let them all introduce themselves. I'll tell you a little bit about myself in case you're new to the work that I do. So, Dairile Jikotea Niaku'no Ruiz León, la trabajaba Taino Boricua, Ikurukuhua Kena Tequina, da Taino Hebeyono Dovaria Boriquén, Kena Dakebia Alu Macau. So, my name is Jikotea Niaku'no Ruiz León. I am a Taino Boricua artist, an educator, or teacher. My Taino ancestors are from here, from Boriquén, where I live in Humacao. And that was actually the last line that I said, is that I live here in Boriquén, in Humacao. So I'm an artist and an educator, and I'm the founder and director of Wuru Taino Te Kiro'uo. So that is a grassroots initiative that I have started alongside my partner, and the purpose of Wuru Taino Te Kiro'uo, or Proud Taino School, which is how it translates, Proud Taino Institute, is to promote and celebrate Taino language and culture. You can find our IG page, and there's also a tab in my website that is just Wuru Taino Te Kiro'uo, and you can learn about what the work that we do. So I'm just going to read a little bit from this. This is something that I had posted on our IG. It says, Wuru Taino Te Kiro'uo is a grassroots initiative founded by myself, Taino Boricua artist Jikotea Niaku'no Ruiz León, and co-founded by anti-colonial educator and researcher, Dr. Gladys Yaceli Aponte. Wuru Taino promotes and celebrates Taino language and culture through presentations, history courses, language classes, workshops, and community gatherings such as this one. So that's Wuru Taino Te Kiro'uo. I'm an enrolled tribal member of Hiwayagwa, and I'm a member of the Hiwatahia Taino language team. I'm a Taino language instructor, and in my classes, my focus is on Hiwatahia Taino language variants or dialect, but I do take a multi-dialect or multi-variant approach, because I think it's important for participants or students to walk away with a better understanding of how things are being said and used in different Yucayekes or different Taino communities, because there are different dialects and variants. I make music in the Hiwatahia Taino language, which you can find on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and other streaming platforms like SoundCloud and things like that. I have a course that I teach between like November and December that is called Intro to Taino History, Language, and Culture, if anyone's interested in that. I host a monthly showcase called Taino Voices, or Voces Tainas, where we interview different people in the community, leaders of the community, and they showcase the work that they do. And it could range from like poets and artists and activists and teachers and cooks and dancers. And we've had a bunch of different awesome people from the community come. It's sort of like a bit of a podcast. And there are a few recordings on my YouTube channel, actually, of that, if you'd like to check that out. The next one is happening in July 7th. It's always at the beginning of the month. If you're interested in getting the link to that, you can you can put your email in the chat directly to me, and later I will make sure that it goes on our email list so that you can get the link to that every month. That's a free offering. So I'm the host of Kiwari Taíno Voices. And also we have a workshop, a Taino poetry workshop that we did last year and that we will offer again this year at some point, called Anaba, the Taino Poetry Workshop. And it was a really awesome experience for people who had been studying the language to then use it in a creative way to write poetry and things like that. So that's a little bit about the work that I do. I want to very quickly sort of celebrate something. So we put out a call for some young people to apply to our Guru Taino Youth Apprenticeship. And we got some really awesome applications. And so we have done our interviews and had conversations. And these are the two young folks that have moved up and are going to be our youth apprentices this summer. So we have Luna Picone Lauro and Rosa Maria de Santiago. And so you will be seeing a little bit more of them on our IG page in the near future. And they're going to be learning the language and also helping with programming while also learning about Taino language and culture. And so it's going to be a sort of multifaceted sort of apprenticeship, internship thing. If you'd like to donate, you can do so via Venmo at Ra Ruiz or PayPal, rakiruiz@gmail, or you can visit our GoFundMe. And I'm gonna ask Jaceli, my partner, to share the GoFundMe link in the chat. And so that fundraising goes to support things like this that are free to the public, but they're not free to make because we want to compensate our guests. We want to compensate the guests for Kiwari, for Taino Voices. Our apprentices are going to be going to receive a stipend. So all of that, all of the support goes to that. So you can donate in any of these forms. But tonight, I want to give a very special thank you, Arikomahu, Hahom, gracias, to the Kiwari Taino Itai Collective for supporting this event by giving the featured guest stipends. They offered to do that, and so that was amazing. And I'll, during the discussion, Diez, who's part of this, who helps lead the Kiwari Taino Itai, I'm sure we'll plug it in and talk a little bit about what the Kiwari Taino Itai Collective does. You can also check them out on Instagram. It has the same name. And last thing before we move on, I want to talk about the classes. If anyone's interested in Taino language classes, I post about this on my social media, both on my personal, Ra Ruiz León at Gmail. I mean, at Ra Ruiz León on Instagram. And also on our Guru Taino Instagram. So you will see these flyers. So if you're interested in the beginner 1, which is the first level, or the beginner 2, which is the second level, if you've already done beginner 1. For folks who are now at an intermediate level, there's a class that we'll be offering. And there's also a Spanish nivel principiante that's going to be meeting on Wednesdays, miércoles. So it's Spanish to Taino. So if anyone here is interested in any of that, please reach out to me at gurutaino@gmail.com and I can give you more information. This is something you can find on my personal IG or the Guru Taino IG, which is a list of Taino language resources and books. But if I can make a recommendation, because I often get people who ask me like, oh, I just want to buy one book. Which one should I buy? My recommendation is this one, is the Hiwatahia Hikeshi Taino Language Dictionary. So if you can only invest in one book right now, I would say you can start with this one. It has about 5,000 words, I believe. And I'm not just plugging it in because I'm part of the Hiwatahia Taino language team. It is a really awesome resource. And if you can't get any of the other books, this one's going to take you a long way. So that said, I'm going to stop share. the first thing that we're going to do is, of course, we're going to have the panelists introduce themselves, and you'll hear them introduce themselves in Hiwatahia Taino, and then they will translate to English or Spanish, however they feel most comfortable. So, Diez, would you like to start?
Miyari da irile Diez Hura, da Taino no dowaria, Haiti kiskeyake na boriken, da kebia alu, Seminole, Florida. So my name is Diez Hura. My Taino ancestors are from Haiti, Quisqueya, and Boriken, and I am currently living on Seminole land in Seminole, Florida. And
can you tell us a little bit about what you do and also about Kiwari Taíno Voices? I feel like this is a good time to.
Okay. So datraha aba kalare umahua areha ikitalo kamekwana abiyabalo. I am a therapist, songkeeper, and community organizer. And I think that those three things kind of sum up what brings me to do all the work that I do, especially with the Kiwari Taíno Voices. So really props to Ra, because one of the things that Ra has really done is gather the gays, gather the queers. And it's like, you know, we obviously are wanting to see representation in community, right? And I think that that's like a huge thing that came about from your classes. It was like people were like, wait, there's more gay people who are Taino, there's more like non-binary folks who are Taino, there's more trans two-spirit folks who are Taino. And then we would be in the chat just being like, how can we connect? How can we connect? So the organizer in me was like, let's make a group. And that's how Kiwari Taíno Voices was born. So it's a space specifically for queer Taino identified folks, two-spirit, non-binary folks, folks wanting to learn the language within those identities, and a space where we can learn and grow together. So that's what Kiwari Taíno is all about. I will drop a link if you are interested in joining. We have an intake form that you can fill out and learn more about us. We meet every month on the first Sunday at 3 o'clock Eastern. And it's all led by us, for us. So although I lead it, it's certainly not my thing. It's not mine, right? It's ours. It is a program, I will just kind of plug in. It's a program of Ominira Healing Village, which Luz, who's on here tonight, is the visionary and co-creator of Ominira Healing Village. And a lot of the vision for what Kiwari Taíno Voices could become was a collaborative with Ominira Healing Village as we're building and weaving communities together. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Ominira Healing Village for all the work that it does to support us in being a collective. And I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Mabu, gracias. Merlin, ¿te puedes presentar y hablarnos un poco sobre ti? Y Yaceli te va a abrir el micrófono.
Ok, ya. ¿Me escuchan? ¿Me escuchan? Perfecto. Pues, ¿qué les digo? Dairi le Merlin Lemur, Dairi Taino le Wakaika Maketauri, da Taino Hebellono de Waria Boriken, y da Kevia Lu Ponce, da Trajavejique. ¿Qué más puedo decir? Soy artesano, doy conferencias, como veí que pues también hago areitos y hago diferentes actividades. En una de las actividades fue que conocí a Ra, ¿verdad? Y me invitó aquí a estos grupos, y estoy de verdad muy contento, ¿verdad? De que me hayan invitado. a participar de estos grupos porque a pesar de los años, no conocía, y tengo que decirlo, que no conocía como tal un grupo, Kiwari Taíno, y de verdad que me gusta. Me gusta y veo el ánimo de ustedes y de verdad tengo que felicitarlos a todos porque todos en su nivel y en su lugar, ¿verdad? Porque incluso hay muchos que no están aquí en Puerto Rico, eh, siguen con la herencia, ¿verdad? Siguen dando el mensaje y eso es lo importante, ¿verdad? Levantar nuestra voz y decir, mira, estamos aquí y estamos aquí para escucharlos y para ayudarlos. De verdad que es una labor muy hermosa. No sé quién la comenzó, pero por lo menos Rafa aquí me invitó. Así que felicito a Raya, a Feli, a Diez, he tenido la oportunidad de hablar con Diez, así que de verdad que los felicito a todos, ¿verdad? Por todo esto que están haciendo por la comunidad Kiwari Taína. Eh, y pues mi trabajo es de artesano, además de ser BI, que soy artesano, y como artesano pues también doy el mensaje y les enseño a las personas, ¿verdad? Porque justamente eso es lo que hace un artesano, sanar con el arte y llevar un mensaje con el arte. Estoy en el Centro Ceremonial Indígena de Tibes, o sea, allí pongo mi mesa de trabajo y allí doy conferencias. También tengo, mi batería está aquí mismo en Ponce, en lo que se llama el sector Las Cucharas. Allí pues hago los areitos y también tengo un área de conferencia donde hemos dado algunas conferencias. Y espero que se sigan dando, ¿verdad? Especialmente ahora con ustedes, ahora que los conozco a ustedes. Quisiéramos más actividades allí, pero de nosotros, de Kiwari Taíno, ¿eh?
Hueva,
Así que bueno,
gracias.
sí.
Aricomabu, gracias, Merlin. Mickey, ¿te puedes presentar? Can you introduce yourself?
Sí, sure. Miari, dari le miki, da taino hebe yono do wari aiti kiskea kena kubao, da kebia alu Piscataway alu. So my name is Mickey. My Taino ancestors are from Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and Cuba. And I currently live in Piscataway, Virginia, Northern Virginia lands.
You want to tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing and what you've been studying and things like that?
Sure. So I went to university, recently graduated graciously with an anthropology degree and double minors in Latin American studies and sustainability. So I've always been the type of person who's really been about community, really, but I didn't really know the best ways to apply that. Originally coming from New York, I was really all about community, raised with community really directly until transitioning over to Virginia when my family decided to move and I was pretty much cut off from most Caribbeans in general. Um, but now I'm up in DC officially as a science educator, mixed socio and environmental researcher, and a climate and traditional knowledge advocate, working in marine conservation under a fellowship now, supporting different tribal governments and like local communities across the US. So I'm really lucky.
And Ana.
Dariri le Ana Teresa. My name is Ana Teresa. Da hebeyono taino doaria poriken kena aitikikeya. My Taino ancestors are from Boriken, but also from Kike Haiti. I have also other indigenous background ancestors and African ancestors. And as you can tell from Nakana, and probably my grandmother's mustache that was darker than Nelsito's, I also have a settler background. So Dakevia Alu in Tucson, Arizona. I live in Tucson, Arizona. This is the traditional land of the Tohono O'odham people and also the White Mountain Apache. And I started out my kind of working and activist life in the gay movement. organizing gay youth for the 1979 March on Washington. I was co-chair of the Peoples of Color Caucus for the 1987 March. And then I got really active in reproductive freedom activism and community health activism. And that's mostly what I worked on, doing community health activism, until I got captured by the academy. And it took a really long time to escape. I ended up here in Arizona. And I will say that as I recover, I live at the border now. So you probably see my home on the TV news all the time because the migrant invasion, etc. And that's the nature of my queer activism now, is in two areas specifically. And one is water rights. And especially with Miki is saying right now is that the border wall has actually dried up some of the most ceremonial standing water centers that were here at the border, like the Quito Baquito Springs, as well as ancestral burial grounds being blown up. So presence and solidarity and protest for that. There's a lot of other people that are doing work specifically about supporting Indigenous, trans, and queer migrants, especially those who are Indigenous who don't speak Spanish or English, and trying to figure out how to get them resources, because so many of the Central American refugees that we get have that need. The other thing I do is that I preserve some of the Behique knowledge corpus from our ancestors, but the part that I've kind of like got trained in, got kept in, is how to be with people que son moribundas, que están preparándose para hacer ese otro viaje. And so that was always what I was taught, how to make people ready for death. And I still do that work here. So I am also Ra's activist friend that does not have a cell phone and that didn't have a picture that they could send through the email for the same reason. And I promise my part of trying to be a good Kiwari activist is over the next year. I'm going to get a cell phone. I'm going to learn how to use WhatsApp, and I'm going to learn how to take pictures.
Nice. And then you can join the Kiwari Taíno WhatsApp group. Because en el grupo de WhatsApp, Merlin siempre se pasa mandando cool videos bien chévere, and there's conversations. We recently just had a Kiwari game night that the Kiwari Taíno organized. Entonces, hay muchas cosas chéveres que te está perdiendo.
Sí, lo sé. Todos los que somos, those of us who are late adopters to the technología, yeah, we're all kind of in the same spot. But anyway, I am so happy that everybody's here. It's such a joyful thing. And I would be remiss by saying that part of it makes me want to say we need to get together. Parte de lo que estoy viendo aquí es el mismo tipo de energía que había en las marchas, porque el propósito de las marchas no era cambiar las opiniones del público o de los políticos que no estaban ahí los fines de semana de cualquier forma. Era para encontrarnos nosotros, los unos a los otros, y aprender cuáles eran las luchas particulares en los diferentes lugares. Y eso es algo que sí creo que sería muy productivo.
Sí. Arikomabu, Jajón, and Nelsito.
Yeah. Okay. Miyari, Dairile Nelsito, I go by Nelsito. Da Taino Hebeyo no Dowaria Cuba. My Taino ancestors are from Cuba. And da Kebia Alu Yanawana River Valley Somisek. I live in what is now called San Antonio, Texas, originally named Yanawana for the healing waters, the many estuaries and rivers in this area. I've only lived here 7 years or so. I grew up in South Florida, I think the way that a lot of like Cuban immigrants do. And I went from Florida, which is like not that great, to like Texas, which is like just as bad. But it was because I came to study marriage and family therapy at a university here that has like a bilingual program that was like really important for me. And so now I'm a couples and family therapist, and I really focus on like conflict resolution and intergenerational trauma And it's been like a real full circle for me since being like 12 years old and being like my parents' first couples therapist, first and only couples therapist. And so it's been one of those things of like trying to help others heal by like healing myself. It's been that kind of vibe over the last few years. I've noticed that that's really what it is, and that's what like I think got me to like decolonial theory and just like the trying to like re-indigenize, realizing that like the wounds that I have, that I've experienced, are things that like as I'm trying to heal, there's like a way to help others do the same. And so I come from, you know, lineages of like a lot of mental, emotional kind of turmoil, a lot of like colonization, a lot of ancestors who, you know, were / are like the colonizers. And so a lot to like unpack and feel like what is accountability for that? And also how do I like connect to the ancestors who were indigenous or like enslaved folks? How do I connect to that that like ancestry? These are all like things that I'm still trying to figure out. And I really admire folks that are like younger and have like a lot of have a sense of like what they want to do with that and how they're exploring that, because I feel a huge sense of like not enoughness that I like am battling every day. So that's my intro. A lot of heaviness, but I appreciate y'all like hearing that with me or holding that space. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Arikumabu. Thank you a todos for introducing yourselves. I'm going to ask my first question, la primera pregunta para todos, and whoever feels like they want to answer it, cualquiera que quiera responder a esta pregunta, y si no está bien, después seguimos con la otra pregunta, con la próxima pregunta. Entonces, la primera, the first question is, what has been your experience in the community as a Kiwari Taíno person? ¿Cuál ha sido tu experiencia en la comunidad con una persona Kiwari Taíno?
Dale, Ana.
Voy a tratar de ser breve, but I want to say that first the question is like, what community are you in at the time? So my experience as a Kiwari Taíno when I was living in Puerto Rico was actually pretty difficult. I had a young cousin that was effeminate and was subjected to conversion therapy and to a medical hormone therapy that really harmed him. So there was always this great fear of being discovered, of being known. So then when I left, the first place that took me in, yes, habíamos Boricua, but the queer community was also home for a while. But part of that national gathering, I was able to see there's lots of queer communities, right? Because Gay American Indians was there from 1979 organizing, and in 87, we were alongside, right? Those of us who are Boricua, still, a lot of us didn't identify as primarily indigenous and African in our background, but we worked alongside the people who did. And so the movement was always globalist. Nosotros pensamos que ahora es la atención a otros lugares como Palestina y el resto de Abya. But gay liberation, when it started out, was not an accommodationist program, sabe? And I think that's one of the things that's kind of scary that my experience has been, is that here we have a point where now we have inclusion and diversity, but we still don't have basic human rights. We don't have a sustainable way of living in our communities with food and water and housing and healthcare. So it shows you that you can have a movement that gets accommodated into the greater kind of like white supremacist culture. And the same thing, even within the queer community. And the other thing that I was going to say is that the queer experience that has changed, we were talking about this earlier, there's a lot of intergenerational change. It used to be that if you were queer and you weren't kind of like really loved by your family in a working class or poor family or marginal family, you were gone. You left for the United States, like many of my great aunts and great uncles did. Now, that is less the case. It reminds me of our experience as indigenous people after colonization and occupation, when some people survived by being in the places where the Spaniards didn't want to be, right? They're the people that maintained community in very rural, difficult to live places, como el Oriente de Cuba. And then there were the other people that hid in plain sight, who lived in multicultural, marginal, often coastal urban communities. And my family was of those, right? That were lived along the docks, las personas que trabajan, los estibadores, the sex workers, the people that made food for the sailors. And, we were the community, and that's the pieces that we kept. So I feel like we have the same experience as indigenous people of having different ways of surviving is also true of us as queer people and Kiwari people, that we have also had our diasporas and we have our homeland. And a lot of us are always moving between the two. I want to hear more about young people and what they're going through.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. I love the perspective of our elders. I say that with honor. I think for myself, for a lot of my clients who I serve a lot of people who are Taino and Kiwari, and certainly from the conversations we've had in the Kiwari Taíno Voices, it's kind of hard to wear multiple identities at once, being indigenous, being queer, being two-spirit, right? Like even queer and two-spirit sometimes don't mix in the same circle, depending on who's holding that space. Right, we know there's a lot of transphobia even within the queer community. So I think it's been interesting having to navigate like being in certain community spaces where your queerness is acknowledged but not always honored, right? Like honoring pronouns. I don't know how many times I've mentioned my pronouns to certain elders and they just don't get them right. And I know they don't mean harm, but I think one of the things we look for by coming to Taino space is healing, is rematriating, is re-indigenizing. And how do you do that when there's still harm being done? And that piece, I am grappling with, y'all, every day, because I want to work with elders and I want to like push in like honoring ways and gentle ways, but also it's like, no, our people need to heal, and they're not going to heal if you're misgendering them. That's just like, that's the reality. So that's the piece that I'm hoping by having a space like the Kiwari Taíno Voices, more people can come together and do healing and then expand outside of that, right? Because it's not meant to be like a bubble. Like it's meant to be like a safe space within other spaces. So you can go to a ceremony in community and get misgendered and then come talk about it at the Kiwari Taíno Voices, right? And like having that support system for each other to heal together. So I'll say that much. Thank you.
Aricomabu, cajón. ¿Alguien más quiere responder a esta pregunta antes de yo hacer la próxima pregunta?
Sí, aquí. Primero, gracias, Ana, por tu perspectiva. Es muy importante and honestly extremely real. As I guess that younger community face right here real quick. I know I was having, I've been very lucky to meet a lot of different people from different communities in my experience. Like DC is a very transient place, so a lot of people come in and out at different times, studying different things. And I remember back when I was in undergrad, I had a really long conversation with a friend of mine who was a part of the Apache community in the southeastern United States. And I asked really like what is his experience being, you know, very openly queer in his community, like being born in a very large and thriving community, which would be very different from what we've all experienced too, even in different ways. But he told me really like one specific thing with even the perception of being queer, how a lot of people really will see being queer as something where you're a part of the overarching queer community automatically by virtue of simply being a queer person. But then he like kind of stops me in the conversation and said, you have to remember that a lot of these queer communities were created because of colonial systems kicking out a bunch of queer kids that decided to come together for safety. It's not exactly the same exact thing in the regards of a lot of people thinking, oh, okay, I'm still a member of my community with all of my identities wrapped up. There are a lot of people that will, because of their own colonial mindsets, take that out on you. So with that, I guess like idea of intergenerational change. I even had my older brother who for a lot of my childhood was more of a person on the homophobic side, I thought, only for me to find out like years later that one of the closest members of his friend group was a trans man. And I was none the wiser. They didn't treat him any differently. And I really did question that even a couple weeks ago. And he started telling me about, oh, well, we really never saw the difference. Like, oh, doing all the other stuff, like that's one thing. But even as teenagers, we were like, no, this is just one of the guys. So things have changed in different communities. I'm talking about like very Caribbean inner city, like New York, that type of community that he was a part of, but it still exists in different places. But like Diez said, it's always better to try to really find your own sense of community with people who really can understand you in like all of that you are. So the Kiwari space is probably the best thing still.
Aricomabu, Mickey, just because of time, I want to move on to the following question, la próxima pregunta. So the next question that I had for you all is, how do you take care of yourself while existing in this colonial white supremacist, Christian supremacist society? ¿Cómo te cuidas a ti mismo dentro de esta sociedad que es colonial, patriarcal, racista, que tiene supremacía blanca, supremacía cristiana? ¿Qué cosas haces para cuidarte a ti mismo? What do you do to take care of yourself in this reality?
When you sent the questions, that like this one really came to mind. Este me vino a mente porque I think it's a little cheesy, but I think what's helped center me the most is you know, not just getting to know like a wider community, otras personas, pero también conectar y tratar de reconectar con la tierra aquí, con el área de aquí donde estoy, de Yanaguana. Yo me crié like por mucho tiempo en la Florida, right? But I've never felt so connected with a land as I do here where I am now. Like I know the bugs that come out at certain seasons. I know like the birds that come, you know, and I feel like really connected with that, right? And it kind of makes me think of that it's not self-care, right? It's collective care, or it's both, right? But it's really important to remember collective care, que la misma manera que las plantitas se cuidan una a la otra, right? That like we also take care of each other. Yeah, we take care of us, right? That's the thing. So I think that's like the most important thing I would say about taking care of yourself is that find someone else to take care of, and then find someone else that you trust to take care of you, and that way like y'all are exchanging in that like reciprocity.
Right. Thank you, Mariko Mabu. Does anyone else want to share in regards to this question before I move on? Anna.
Just really quickly, because I think it's really important to, we are very scholarly and self-reflective people and self-critical people. But sometimes it's very hard to apply all of that analytical and theoretical background that we have. We can apply it to things that are distant and not to ourselves and our own communities and our own organizing. I have a doctorate too in medical anthropology and in anthropology religion. I also went to interfaith seminary. But just like many other people, it is almost all of the things that are unhealthy in our lives are structurally promoted by this overwhelming, it's not just the trauma of colonization as if that's something that happened long ago. It is an active culture of oppression that targets many, many people for different reasons. And all of us tend to place our difficulties as if they're personal failures. I didn't work enough. I wasn't clear enough. I didn't prepare enough. When, the reality was those things were never going to come to you anyway, unless you paid very high prices. And as I've mentioned, there's not just like a white supremacist culture in the United States or in Europe. It exists, claro, también en Puerto Rico. So we have more than 500 years now of self-hatred, of hatred of all the different parts of ourselves, the parts of us that were poor, the parts of us that are dark-skinned and African. Our African ancestry has been used to undermine our indigenous ancestry, and our indigenous ancestry has been used to undermine our African ancestry. And the whole idea is trying to create us as a new kind of Telemundo, Univision culture where everybody speaks like Spaniards or elite Mexicans and Colombians. And this is the work that Yaceli does too with language, right? To reminding us that all of these things that we think that are our personal difficulties, they're not private problems, and that's why we can't solve them privately. This is also why, especially, and I'm saying this for Ra, and somebody who's a leader, a young leader, so many of the conflicts right now among Kiwari people and among Taino people, people that identify with different words, you didn't reference the right dictionary in your new dictionary. You called fulano instead of calling me first one. You're not really from here. You're not doing anything there. I mean, you could just see these. You misspelled a word in Spanish. You misspelled a word in English on your flyer. You misspelled a word on Hiwatahia that doesn't even have a universal spelling. We will use all of these things. These things are not accidents. They are not accidents, and they're not personal responsibilities, even though there is accountability. The entire system creates a conflict by having us all be lo que llaman crabs in a pot, ¿verdad? I know there are tiny amounts of reparations that have almost nothing to do with the real injuries people have, that are parceled out to the people that the national state cultures believe are deserving. And everybody's fighting for those. That hasn't just happened to Tainos, that's happened to all indigenous people in this particular system, right? So that people deny each other's relatives, right? They deny we're indigenous. Then people that have lived in a land for generations, but now the new rules are only maternal or only paternal heritage counts. So all of a sudden, people lose their, they don't belong. This is why, even though I respect the people that are trying to work for things like federal recognition, I don't think we can win those battles. And I don't think that there are our work I believe, is healing each other from thinking that these are personal issues, understanding where our conflicts come from, that they're not our conflicts, that they're placed on us, refusing a lot of those conflicts. And it's going to take a lot of work, and hopefully it will be a little bit harder. I'm hearing some of the difficulty, Diez Hura, with older people, and I understand that. You know, for example, I was mentioning to Diez that I'm the only person in a lot of my spaces as an older person that puts pronouns, because that's not part of what my generation grew up with. It's not there. There've always been gender fluid people, always, with different kinds, right? But we didn't have a word in terms of how we talked about it. So if younger people can be patient with the fact I am horrible, for example, with S, right? Getting rid of the as or the os, but the S when I'm speaking Spanish. And the fact that I'm horrible with technology. But the other side of it is that older activists, this is why we have to work together, need to listen to what is life like now? What are the everyday struggles for young people, especially teenagers right now? Because I feel like teenagers and seniors, we have a lot in common, right? We're managed professionally by a lot of different professions, instead of people asking what our lives about, what do we do, what can we give. So I think there's a lot of room for, like, at the very youngest end of the spectrum and the oldest end of the spectrum, not blaming ourselves, working together this way, and also realizing, you know, there's a lot of injury here. There is not one person, I'm sure, if we talked about our families, where we can come up with hideous things that the people we loved said about Indigenous people, about Black people, about poor people, about rich people. You know, these are part of our we can't have grown up and not have these things. You know, I say this openly, you know, my entire family, when I was growing up in Boriken, were anti-Semitic. And it's not because there were evil people. It's because they were colonized by the Spanish and all of that stuff that the Inquisition brought. So that's part of my work, has been educating myself in that area, right? And that gives me the tools to be a better ally, for example, to both Palestinians and also all of the progressive Jewish people, including the progressive Jewish people in Boriken, como Aurora Levens Morales, that are out there at the front saying, no, there are some of us that, you know, we have this different identity and we're not Zionists. You know, so we have this option of the intergenerational work, the understanding that our conflicts are given to us. They're provided to us. There's nothing evil about us or the person we're fighting. I think those are two places to start. And the third is, you know, we talked about people Diez, the very things you said are things that a friend of mine who's a poet said. Her name is Kate Rush, and she wrote a very famous poem called the Bridge poem. That's the title of this bridge, called My Back. The Black me has to translate to the queer me, you know, all of those things. What you don't get from that is the joy and creativity that's also part of activism. Because Kate and I, we didn't just write sad, conflictive poems. We used to go to parties together. We were DJs for Audre Lorde's birthday, for crying out loud. You know, so I think that the other thing is honoring the work that is not honored by this system, the work of creative artists, of educational workers, and of teachers, are things that are really not valued, but we need them if we're gonna get better. And it's not so much, it's more than healing. It's like, you know, surviving isn't enough anymore for us. You know, we want more things. So isn't it good that things have changed? You know, so we have to get past the older activists that's like, when I was a young person being an activist, we didn't have community such mierda. Things change for every generation, right? But it's no different than people saying, oh, I don't want loans forgiven. That's a created conflict. It's not something everybody wants people to. It would be better for everybody to have education. So with that, I'll stop, but I'll just say that education, this is why your project is so important. And it's kind of like why I'm here, because it's like why I didn't decide to go right off into the sunset into, like a retirement community, is because that's not what I want. I know that I am not going to live long enough to see the nation that I want to claim me as an ancestor. But if I can be present,
damn, you're gonna make me cry, Ana.
Until
Damn.
I finish this journey. When I finish this journey, I want to feel like I made a difference to the people that are going to go forward, just like people were, did that for me. So I will stop there, but I think that is really people to understand the things that are hard. They're not your fault. None of them are your fault. Oh, you got the grant instead of me. All of those things.
The competitiveness.
We need to change the way that we look at the stuff. And I think that there also needs to be a support group for Kiwari anthropologists. And I know that now Mickey and I can found that.
Y'all can lead that. Thank you so much, Arikomabu, Hahumana, for all that you just said. And I'm really happy that our youth, our Ruru Taino youth apprentices are here and got to hear this. And it's also, we're recording this, so it's also going to go on my YouTube channel. So, Arikomabu, Ana. Because of time, I want to ask 2 more questions. And this is a good segue con lo que tú estabas diciendo, Ana. So the question is, what work and growth would you like to see done in our community? ¿Qué esfuerzo y crecimiento dentro de la comunidad quieres ver dentro de nuestra comunidad taína? So, quien quiera responder a esa pregunta.
Bueno, yo creo que Ana como que lo clavó. Ana nailed it on the head. And I think that everyone I talk to who identifies as Kiwari and Taino is wanting to create more bridges and less competition, like you're saying, more unity, and I think that has been such a big goal personally in the work that I'm doing in Taino community. It's like, no, I don't want to know about the drama. Like why? Like, we are already marginalized, y'all. Like, wasting our time infighting, is just what the oppressor wants. So I think for me, like, something I want is more, again, right, education, back to what Ana was saying, so that we really see the dynamics of what that does and how it keeps us down rather than lifting each other up. And continuing to do this weaving of community, right, where the Kiwari Taino can, come together with you and fund projects, and, it's like, here's this grant, here's that grant, and like, let's all apply, and like, quien lo coja, lo coge y lo reparte, ¿verdad? And like that shift into abundance, because Pachamama nos da todo lo que necesitamos. No hay nada que la mamá tierra no nos da. Y aquí estamos como en en la mentalidad colonial diciendo que hay que pelear por más. No, ya lo tenemos todo. Nuestras tierras son abundantes. Entonces, yeah, I think that's what I want to grow and see continuing to grow in community.
Ariko Mabu, I agree 100%. ¿Alguien más que quiera responder a esta? Nikki.
Es verdad, menos peleas, más trabajo, unidad, determinación. Honestly, like I saw something earlier, literally today, with on Taino Library's social media, talking about specifically the fact that like even one of my most like I guess important things for me in the community is really getting to know and see that like a lot of people also are being educated in the same way that I am. So more people are like, you know, on the same wavelength, really have a sense of understanding. And that's a lot harder when it's just mostly a comment section that's infighting about who's more Taino than the other person. It gets really hard to even really want to be in community when a lot of people treat certain parts of being in community like a badge of honor, to the point that like some people wouldn't even really want to talk about the traditions that they have, because other people might just, I don't know, start talking about it as if it's theirs in weird ways. And then we have possession over a thing that's supposed to be shared, you know?
Ariko Mabu, Nikki. Merlin o Nelsito, antes de yo hacer la próxima pregunta, si quieren responder a esta pregunta de qué crecimiento quieren ver en la comunidad.
Creo que crecimiento, like, ya está ahí, you know, the fact that, like, the Kiwari Taíno, like, Itai, Kiwari Taíno Itai is there, like, ese crecimiento, like, that innovation, like, eso como que spontaneous, va a suceder, right? And I think it's, like, the momentum. How do you keep the momentum, you know? What needs to happen when people get discouraged? What do we do to, like, protect or, like, insulate ourselves? And, like, some of the leadership, right? Like, some of y'all that are doing, like, the work of getting us together, like what happens for you when you start to feel that discouragement, and like what do we have in place que pueda apoyarles when that's happening? So that's what I would be kind of curious to see, and maybe I need to like think about that more specifically myself.
Thank you, Ariko Mabu. Merlin, creo que tenía la mano alzada, ¿verdad? Sí.
A ver, yo creo que ahora me escuchan. Pues está muy bien todo lo que han dicho, de verdad, como dice el hermano Nelsito, ya estamos creciendo. Es cuestión de que, porque entonces esto es una semilla, ¿verdad? Esto que estamos haciendo, que ustedes ya han comenzado, ha ido creciendo. Y mientras más conocemos más gente, los vamos uniendo y los vamos educando también y vamos creciendo. O sea, esto es una semilla que está creciendo y creo que está creciendo rápidamente según lo que veo. Entonces, pues es bueno que todos comencemos a regar esa semilla y a compartir lo que comparte Ra. Ustedes me ven que yo rápido voy, chato, toma para la historia. Y lo pongo en mis redes sociales, lo que comparte y así, o sea, compartir, o sea, si Ra, por ejemplo, pone algo, algún mensaje o algo, vamos a compartirlo porque los seguidores que yo tengo tal vez no los tiene Ra, ¿eh? Entonces, ese mensaje se va a ir aumentando, va a ir llegando a más gente. Yo hago videos y a mí YouTube no me paga nada. Yo no gano nada con los videos que yo hago de YouTube. Yo, si tengo 2 o 3 seguidores, es mucho. Pero me gustan las conferencias que hago allá en el centro, publicarlas en YouTube, porque no todo el mundo va a llegar a la conferencia. Pero tal vez hay gente que, aunque sea por casualidad, vean el video, se encuentren con el video, lo escuchen, lo vean y digan, oye, mira, esto está pasando en Puerto Rico, mira, esto está pasando en el Centro Ceremonial Indígena de Tíbet, que hay gente que todavía ni siquiera sabe que el centro está abierto. Entonces, eso es algo que si uno promociona y compartimos, yo lo pongo aquí ahora, no me había atrevido, pero empecé a ponerlo aquí en el chat, ¿verdad? Y veo que les gustaron, pues voy a seguirlos compartiendo, porque ustedes pueden compartir eso en sus páginas, porque ustedes tienen muchos seguidores que yo no tengo. Y así llegamos a más gente, así esto crece. y va a seguir creciendo, perdón, porque sé que hay muchas personas allá afuera que no saben que pueden tener este grupo de apoyo donde ellos pueden expresarse, donde pueden aprender más, donde pueden crecer. Entonces, creo que nos toca a nosotros regar esta plantita, esta semillita que se ha sembrado, ¿verdad? Para que llegue a todos los demás y va a seguir creciendo. Esto pica y se extiende, como dicen, como decimos aquí.
Aricomabu, jajón. Y entonces ahora voy a hacer era como la transición, the last question, the transition to the last question, la última pregunta, is what advice would you give to young Kiwari Taino folks in our community? ¿Qué consejos le quieres dar a jóvenes Kiwari Tainos en nuestra comunidad?
Can I start? Okay. My my like words would be that like you are already good enough. Like you have innate value. You are everything that you are supposed to be, and that's because you're part of nature, because you exist, and just existing means that you are like innately like worthy. And the things that you do, that you try, that you enjoy, that you love, like that's what will fuel like a lot of your future, a lot of like the I guess it's just, you know, do more of those things that you love, right? And like really hone those things, because it's going to bring you a lot of joy, and do them with the people that you love, the people who love to do them, because it's gonna make life really worth living.
Aricomabu. ¿Quién sigue? Mickey.
Tienes talentos que pueden levantar en un futuro mejor, honestly. Like you have a lot of talents naturally just being the person you are that's going to lead you to a better future. And there's no point in really downplaying that. I mean, I know as someone who's part of like a younger generation, like I know you can even say from what we've already seen, like the current generation is un poco sin vergüenza, ¿verdad? Like it's a little, people are more comfortable getting in your faces, which I think is a very good thing. But I want more people to really not lose that sort of energy while they're growing. Not to mention like hold on to some of the things that was important to them when they were younger, that you learned from an older generation member or even your own family members, that can really help you go towards larger careers. I come from a family of traditional fishermen, and now I'm working in marine conservation in DC, things like that. So.
Aricomabu, Mickey.
I can share a few words. I think for myself, and you know, it's like absorb as much as you can from your elders while you have them. I think there wasn't enough emphasis for my generation of how important our elders were. And like I was raised by my great grandma and my grandma, but like learning the wisdom, like now I have to look back at the memories and be like, oye, pero abuela estaba haciendo este abono con la comida y se le echaba las matitas, right? And it's like, oh, that's composting, right? And it's like, oye, eso lo estaba haciendo mi abuela, pero yo no sabía que era composting, right? But, right, so it's like, rather than having to look back and like grasp for things that you witnessed, if you could literally just sit down and just like download as much as you can from our elders, they're yearning to give it. I think and that's part of it. It's like they're yearning to like just like pour it out, but they don't think we want it. Some elders genuinely don't think we want it, right? It's like, no, I don't. They think they're better than us, you know. And it's like, no, we really need to honor our elders and learn from them and be humble about like wanting to learn. So if you have elders, you know, just like sit them down and be like, cuéntamelo todo.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yo me siento a veces con mi abuela y le hago preguntas de su juventud y cosas así, y le salen unos cuentos locos. Y yo digo, mamá, ¿tú hiciste eso? Y ella, sí, yo le metí con un machete a ese tipo que me pegó los cuernos. And I was like, ¿qué, muchacha? Merlin.
¿Sí? ¿Aló?
Sí, está,
Oh,
tenés el
ok.
micrófono.
No me había dado cuenta que estaba prendido el micrófono. Pues mire, la juventud es importante guiarla, es importante dar estos ejemplos para los jóvenes. Les invito, ¿verdad?, a los jóvenes que busquen de sus ancestros, ¿verdad?, primeramente, ¿verdad?, como estaban ustedes hablando, y que busquen estos grupos, que busquen en la naturaleza, porque la naturaleza nos los dice todo, la naturaleza nos guía, y que aprendan, ¿verdad?, que no importa la decisión que tú hayas tomado en tu vida, cómo te quieras identificar, tú no eres raro. Tú eres lo que eres y eres como eres. Eres una persona totalmente normal y no eres ni diferente ni extraño. Eres una persona que vale, una persona que tiene mucho poder dentro de ti. Y eso es lo que les da miedo a los demás, lo que les da miedo al gobierno. Ver que somos gente empoderada, que esa básicamente sería la palabra. Empodérate de tu vida, busca, infórmate, únete con estas personas, ¿verdad? Que estamos ayudándolos, ayudando a la comunidad, porque la ayuda la hay. ¿Eh? Y lo más importante es que se sientan seguros, porque es lamentable ver todos esos casos de jóvenes que se suicidan porque le hacían bullying en las escuelas, no tuvieron quien lo guiara. De hecho, hace un rato puse un video en el chat de un pedazo de una película donde esa madre, muy religiosa, ¿verdad?, se avergonzaba de su hijo homosexual y se tuvo que dar cuenta que él estaba bien cuando se suicidó. O sea, no hay que esperar a que una persona se suicide para comprender que está bien, que esa persona realmente siempre estuvo bien. Así que estamos aquí para ayudar siempre, así que éxito y bendiciones.
Aricomabu, Jajón, le voy a pedir a todos que pongan su Instagram, Facebook, a los panelistas, si quieren que las personas pues lo sigan o le escriban, si tienen alguna pregunta. So invite everyone to follow all the panelists on their Instagram or their Facebook, especially if you have any questions for them or you want to continue a conversation with them. Yeah, you can reach out to them. You can also reach out to me via Instagram at Ra Ruiz León or through our Guru Taino Instagram page, which is just at Guru Taino. And if you feel inspired to donate to our community offerings, community gatherings like this one, as I mentioned at the beginning, you can do so via Venmo at Ra Ruiz, PayPal using my email, raquiluis@gmail, or through our GoFundMe. And if you have any questions about language classes, you can reach out to me. If you have questions about the Taino language resources, if you have questions about the next, community offerings like this one that are going to happen, yeah, you can just reach out and I can send you information. I want to say Aricomabu, Jajón, gracias, thank you to all the panelists for taking time to be here tonight, to share about their life, their experiences in celebration of Pride Month, and to be here in community together to celebrate being queer Tainos or Kiwari Taínos. And I'm going to ask the panelists to stay, que se queden los panelistas, para que así podamos do a little cool down together and just reflect. And everyone else, thank you so much. Gracias a todos que vinieron a escuchar a todas estas personas hablar de su experiencia, de su vida. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you at the next Kiwari Taíno panel discussion, which will happen at some point. I don't know. I don't know the date. But I post about it on my social media. And yeah, and I think that's all for tonight. Thank you so much. Arigato mabu.